Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 14 of the Hot Path Show. I'm Johnny Turbo, joined in by Danny from Unity. How's it going, Danny?
Pretty good, pretty good. I mean, had a busy week. I was on the stream on the Unity channel, and now I'm here.
Yeah,
And
you
I
you
also made
were on
a
the
game.
stream. You were on the stream on the Unity channel. It was a really good stream. If you guys didn't catch that, it was on YouTube as well as the Twitch channel. And is the replay still available on YouTube? I probably should have checked,
Yeah,
but
yeah. You can just go on the Unity YouTube and see it right there. As like, it's called Let's Dev Unity Dots.
yeah, yeah. And it was a good stream. It was you, Mike Geig, and remind me of the other gentleman's
Christopher
name.
Redden, the
Yes, yeah,
tech
yeah, yeah.
lead for Dots.
Yes, awesome. Yeah, and it was a good stream. You guys talked about a bunch of cool DOS topics and went into some good questions and everything from the audience. But yeah, so anyways, this is our show, the Hot Path Show, where we talk about using data-oriented design in game development. And Danny, you were recently working on a fun little project over this past weekend, and you're going to be showcasing that today. So do you want to give people a little, just a little teaser about what they can expect later on in the show?
Yes, I mean, hopefully it works to even show it in the first place. I'm still getting things set up, but on my end. But let's see if we can go into the game view and actually see the scene loading and everything. So this little fun project. Oh, and the audio works. We can have a little bullet and we can like shoot them. Yeah,
Awesome.
there
This
we
is your
go.
game, Crops and Comrades, right?
Well, it's our game. I was
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
group
yeah, yeah.
of multiple people, and I'll name those later.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, that was part of the Nordic Game Jam, and so we'll be talking about that, a little bit later on when we get to that part of the show. So yeah, anyways, welcome in everybody. Great to see you, Chad, TJ. Great to have you all in here. So yeah, just a couple miscellaneous announcements kind of before we get started here. Do want to remind you that our other co-host, Tobias, his game Just Read the Instructions is available. You can get this on Steam. It is in early access right now. It's a co-op first-person shooter, basically built fully with dots and a custom networking stack. It's a really cool, fun game. I played it with a couple of friends last weekend, and yeah, it definitely takes advantage of the data-oriented technology stack, entity component system, and there's tons and tons of enemies that you're just completely mowing down. So it is a good time. Would highly recommend checking out. Just read the instructions. Another little thing that I do want to mention is Unity at GDC. They had the Dev Summit, where they basically showcased a bunch of they had their bunch of their like kind of GDC talks and everything like that. So they're starting to kind of roll these out, available to the public. So they do set up this little website called the Dev Summit on Demand, and this should be in the description of the video, but I'll post it in the chat here as well. And here they're going to be posting some of their talks for from GDC. So there's like the roadmap talk, and then some of the ones. There's the one on dots baking. So it's just kind of like a good overview about how baking works and everything. And then they're starting to add in some of the graphics and Muse ones. And so yeah, I don't think they're all up there yet, but yeah, they're going to be slowly rolling those out there. So this should be probably on their YouTube channel as well. But if you just want to go to that site and just stay posted on there, because I know they're going to be posting those all over on there. And then yeah, also did want to mention that I did put up a little poll a couple weeks ago, just kind of gauging people's interest for the next community event that we could be hosting over here. So I just kind of wanted to get people's interest on, if they wanted to do kind of a more traditional game jam or the kind of a community challenge style, kind of like what we did last time, where people are kind of all solving one specific problem with Unity dots. And it seemed to be pretty split. I think it kind of actually ended up leaning a little bit more towards the community challenge, but there's still a lot of good interest for a community event. So yeah, definitely want to be, or a game jam rather. There's still a good amount of interest for that. So yeah, do want to get another community event coming up here soon. So we'll have a little bit more details on that over the coming weeks here. Also, do want to remind you all that you can support us over on Patreon. Over there, you do get access. All Patreon supporters get access to bonus episodes every month. I did just put up one this morning. A little bit of a new trend that I've kind of seen in the kind of games industry is this trend towards these like small kind of like instant games where I've seen this like on YouTube lately. I don't know if you guys have seen this, where they have these like little instant games that are available for you where you can just like play right within the YouTube app. Like you just click play and then it basically just kind of like, loads up this little tiny game on your device. So it's kind of interesting. Like I've seen this kind of trend, like I think kind of Discord and like Facebook Messenger are starting to integrate some of these kind of instant games. So I did just kind of want to like talk about it a little bit and talk specifically about how it kind of relates to Dots games. So Danny, have you kind of seen this trend at all towards these, small little instant games?
I mean, not really. I definitely not on YouTube. I've seen like small advertising games on like other apps, like game apps. I've also seen like can't remember where I last saw it. No, but generally not. I haven't seen this. Maybe it's also region based.
So actually, yeah, I think I didn't realize this until I was like finishing up editing the video last night, but I think it might be a YouTube Premium feature. So I'm not sure if you're a YouTube
Oh,
Premium subscriber or
but I
not.
definitely have
But
noticed Discord. I
okay,
mean,
yeah, yeah,
Discord
yeah,
definitely has the little card games and everything.
yeah. And I think even Unity in their GDC talk, they were like talking about how they wanted to kind of support these instant games, and they mentioned, yeah, like the Facebook Messenger would be one of the platforms you could do that on. So just thought it was kind of like a little bit of an interesting trend, and there could be some potential interesting opportunities there, especially for using dots where you're kind of optimizing for performance, especially kind of on low end devices. Maybe we'll see a resurgence of Project Tiny at some point.
I don't know.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So yeah, I just put out that video this morning. Again, that is available to all supporters over on Patreon. And then I did also recently put up an episode where for the people at the CPU, or what is it called, the L1 cache tier and up, we're just kind of going over the recording equipment that I use for creating videos and all that. And then also going to be having a Q&A video that I'm recording this weekend. I did put up a little post over on Patreon. So if you're at the tier where you have access to the Q&A, you'll just see a post on there and you can just reply to that. And then, yeah, I can answer those questions here. And then, I do think that I am going to be doing a little bit of changes to kind of how I'm structuring the tiers, and maybe even give the ability to people to support through a YouTube membership as well. So I'll have a little bit more kind of specific information on those kinds of changes next week. I've been kind of kicking some things around. So yeah, and with that, we can kind of get into our first little warm-up topic here. So one thing that I wanted to talk about is basically making things intentionally difficult, especially when it comes to like development. Is there any times where you've kind of like intentionally increased the difficulty for one reason or another? The reason I wanted to talk about this is because I recently moved into a new place and felt like it would be a good opportunity for me to just kind of like get into some new habits and things like that. So one thing that I actually just did is in Writer for my IDE, I installed the Idea Vim package, which basically gives you Vim motions right in Writer. And then I also turned off autocomplete just to basically try and make myself a little bit more intentional about the development that I'm doing, because I feel like there were a lot of times, to be honest, where autocomplete was kind of like getting in the way a little bit, where I was like, would just kind of instinctively like type two letters and hit enter, and then it would like put the wrong thing in, and then I would just kind of like lose my flow of work a little bit. And so yeah, and then I think just kind of relearning Vim motions, it's something that I had used a long time ago. It's something that I want to get back into because I ended up getting very efficient with them. So it is definitely a lot more difficult. I've been a little bit slower with development so far as I'm just kind of getting back into it. But so I just kind of wanted to say, is this something that has resonated with you? Have you ever done anything, specifically when it comes to development or otherwise, where
I
you're
mean,
kind of like
I wouldn't.
intentionally increasing the difficulty?
I I guess it kind of depends on how you like word it, because no, I haven't intentionally tried to make things more difficult. You know, I always make a point to try and learn new things, and I've also tried to learn Vim, but I wouldn't say that I've forced myself to like continue doing it when it didn't really add any benefit to me in the end. Like recently started trying to learn reverse engineering. Like there's something called Ghidra, which allows you to decompile native programs and try to reverse engineer the source code, and it's very difficult. Uh, but that's like a challenge to myself more than anything. I don't see it as adding difficulty for myself. It's just about expanding my horizon and learning new stuff.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that could be kind of part of it as well, where you're like, yeah, doing something where even though it may be a little bit more difficult, um, it'll lead to something better, kind of long term.
yeah, I mean, also I definitely cannot relate to the IDE struggle, because for me the auto completion does help my flow, because it like I won't press enter. I don't have the very quick to hit enter. I will instead sometimes look at it, sometimes I will just type it out. Um, but I won't hit pre-enter. And generally it helps my workflow. It doesn't restrict me, so I'm not. I definitely
Yeah,
can relate to that.
I think that was kind of part of my problem is I was just getting like too reliant on just like continually hitting the enter key and having it, paste in right there. So I still do have, whatever the, code vision thing is called, where it like, shows you when you do like, class dot whatever, it'll show you, all the
Mm,
methods and variables and everything. So like that's still there.
yeah.
So I can kind of like, reference that because I do think that that is extremely helpful.
Yeah,
But again,
and I
just
also
like,
know that some people have something they call the co-pilot pause.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
like when you try to type stuff out, and then you wait uh, for Copilot to do something, and sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, it costs time because you wait, and that
Right.
hinders your flow more than it adds to your flow.
Yeah.
Um, the question is just whether Copilot then in the end helps you more than it does you harm. Uh,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that I've kind of seen with these AI tools and like, you start to see it in like even like my email client, like as I'm typing out like an email, it'll like, give you hints for, the next word or a couple words that you want to say. And I feel like that usually ends up being kind of like a distraction because I'm kind of like thinking about saying one thing and then it like gives me a hint to say something else and then it just kind of like throws off my train of thought there and yeah, kind of ends up getting in the way. So yeah, I kind of tend to turn those tools off and I haven't used Copilot yet and again it doesn't seem like something that'll quite work for my workflow yet.
yeah, yeah, fair.
Also, I see Chad is not very much a fan of Vim, probably an Emacs user.
Vim is definitely an acquired taste, because you can definitely learn your way to Vim, and then the people who learn Vim, it's very good for. But I don't think
Yeah, yeah,
necessarily everyone has to learn it.
yeah. Back when I was in college, I was pretty proficient with Vim because like all of our programming was basically just done through Linux, and yeah, I ended up getting pretty proficient with Vim, and yeah, just thought it was yeah something that I want to go back to. So.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So yeah, that's pretty much a little warm up topic there. I see that you did star a question. Do you want to get to that one now?
Nah, I think it's easier during the show.
All right. Sounds good to me. Okay. Next thing that I do want to bring up is just a quick error correction code or correction from the previous week, where we're talking about the Unity ECS samples. So someone wrote in saying that we're talking about the ECS samples Boyd's project. And we're considering if they ended up kind of using some type of tree structure or something. But someone wrote in to clarify that they're actually using spatial hashing rather
Yes.
than a tree-like structure.
It's just a
So
big dictionary with a bunch of hashes, and all things that are sort of in the same space is what moves together.
nice, I like it.
It's a little cursed because you have to read the custom made job. So there's a custom job for looping over in parallel fashion the buckets in the hash map. So it can be a little hard for some people to read that project.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, there are some things in this project that is a little bit complicated, but yeah. Anyhow, we can move into a quick little sponsored segment here from the Unity Asset Store, because the Unity Asset Store is hosting a massive spring sale right now. I believe it's going on until May 8th. So yeah, there's over 300 assets available for 50% off, and there are a bunch of assets going on flash deals where basically each day they will add in some number of flash deals that are 70% off for a limited time. And then, after that limited time's over, they'll be on sale for 50% off for the remainder of the sale. So a couple cool ones that I do want to talk about is the Agents Navigation package. I'm a big fan of this asset. I did do a review on this asset on the channel a while back. So if you are interested in maybe using something like this to do navigation across large numbers of entities, definitely go check that out. By the way, I did see down in the changelog here, I think it's releases, they recently added an integration to integrate with the A-Star pathfinding project. So this is the one by Aaron Greenberg, and or Aaron Grainberg. And so yeah, this is another asset that is available for 50% off. I know this is another very popular asset that people use for pathfinding. So yeah, the Agents Navigation now has an integration with this. I have not tested it out or anything to see how it works, but yeah, really cool that it's been integrated with another kind of popular asset that kind of does some similar things. So that's super cool to see. Also, the Agents Navigation does have an expansion pack. So if you do already own the base Agents Navigation pack, they do have a crowds one that is kind of geared towards more moving crowds. I am going to be putting out a review of this asset this coming Monday, so definitely be on the lookout for that one. So if you're maybe a little bit on the fence about this asset, wait for the review for that. Again, that's going to be coming out on Monday. And then the other kind of main ECS assets that is available as part of the sale is the Rukonka ECS animation system. So this is a pretty easy to set up animation system that's fully compatible with DOTS and ECS. And it kind of integrates with the existing animation tools like Mechanim and all that. So it is pretty cool there. Of course, Odin Inspector and Serializer, really great for creating tools within the editor. It just gives you a lot of super easy to use things. Definitely a classic asset that's available. Odin also has the Odin Validator, which kind of, I think this one's a little bit geared towards, like, especially if you're working on larger teams, or maybe you have like some developers and level designers. Well, you can basically create rules in your game, and then, as people are kind of building out things within the editor, it can kind of flag that, when some of these rules are, some things need to be corrected. So it can kind of like alert you to potential problems and things that are in your game. I believe actually next week Unity is doing another live stream with some of the people from Odin, and they're going to be talking about the Odin Inspector, Odin Validator, and all that.
Yes.
Also, I'm just a huge fan of the Cinti Studios. They do a lot of the really cool low poly stuff. And so, yeah, I think the Zombies pack is kind of a cool one, especially if you're making some, crazy zombie game where you have thousands and thousands of zombies. This gives you a lot of good kind of variety on the zombies. And again, they're low poly. So in theory, they should be, pretty performant in that sense there. And then finally, the last one that I do want to mention is the shapes assets. And I'm actually going to be giving a quick little demonstration about how to use the shapes assets with Unity dots right now. But yeah, this is another great asset available for you to kind of be able to do like vector art. I think it's particularly good for debugging, especially for like, creating different lines and shapes and things like that that are available on the screen that are just kind of, a little bit more, you can get they're a little more configurable than just like the standard Unity's debug lines. So again, definitely a lot of cool things in the Unity Asset Store sale. So yeah, you can go ahead and check out the links down in the description below, where I have the link to the sale as well as all these individual assets that I did talk about here. By the way, those are affiliate links, and so they don't cost you anything extra to use, but if you do end up purchasing something off the asset store after clicking one of those, then it does go to support our channel over here. So that is very much appreciated. Okay, so, and then, yeah, we can just go ahead and roll right into the Unity Dots quick tip of the week. And this week, again, I'm going to be showcasing how to use the shapes asset inside of a Unity Dots project. So I will go ahead and share the screen here. Okay, so this is basically the little sample project, then I'll just kind of show you the end result of what we'll be creating here. But basically, I just kind of have these simple little lines that are kind of moving around here. Yeah, again, this is all kind of rendered with the shapes. And again, you can see that, even though these are simple little lines, we can have them a little bit more configurable, or we can make them a little thicker, kind of have these end caps. And so, yeah, again, super helpful for debugging and things like that. So going over to the code here. So yeah, the first thing that we need to do is basically create a kind of like base class that we will inherit from. And then that way, then basically we can use that particular system to basically draw any of these shapes. So the shapes asset has kind of like multiple ways that you can basically draw shapes on the screen. One of them is by using like game object components, where you basically just put components on game objects. Of course, we're working with an ECS context. That stuff is not available to us. So we do have to use what is known as kind of the immediate mode, which the way that it kind of traditionally works is you basically have like this custom mono behavior that you inherit from, and that gives you kind of access to basically call some additional drawing functions to basically draw things within the world. So I've kind of basically actually learned this from you, Danny. I think you kind of
I recognize pretty much all of this code.
Yeah. So you can basically just go open up like I think it's just called mono behavior draw, if I remember correctly. And it has like basically all these kind of same things here, where it's just kind of like listening to certain events. And then, so yeah, we just kind of need to, basically in the onStart running, we'll subscribe to the Render Pipeline Manager's Begin Camera Rendering event. When that happens, we'll call this Draw Shapes SRP. And then this Draw Shapes SRP, what this does is it takes in the scriptable render context as well as the camera. And then we call this On Camera Pre-Render. And then, so yeah, basically in here, we just do a quick check to, make sure that we're not using reflection in there. Don't render in reflection probes in case we run the script in the editor. And then the one thing that I kind of added in here is a layer mask here. So basically, if you have a camera where you don't want to render the shapes layer, then you can basically ignore that. But yeah, basically, if you're not on that layer, you should be able to render it. Then we just call this on draw here. You see this on draw is an abstract void. So this is where we basically implement our actual own logic here. So I can basically show you that here. So I just have this kind of simple little node mover system that will go ahead and spawn a couple of these nodes and then just kind of basically move them like out and in. It's just a pretty simple little thing here. So this is just kind of like a regular system. And then I have another system, which is this line drawer system. And I'm updating this in the presentation system group. And you'll see that it implements the system base draw. And again, this system base draw is it has everything that a normal system base would. So we do have to implement the on update function here. And then you'll see that we here are overriding the on draw method. And then it takes in this camera here. And then all we do is just say using draw.command, passing in the camera. We can basically inside here call any of the shapes draw functions. So what I'm done here is I've just done like an idiomatic for each, or I'm just looping through all these things for the lines, and then I'm getting the positions from the node A and node B, and then all I'm doing is just calling draw line, passing in node A position, node B position. Here I'm setting a thickness as well as a color. And of course we can say, change this to anything we want. By the way, use our little kind of Vim motions here where we can move around, right? Look at all these fancy things that I'm doing. We could say, change this to, I don't know, blue. And then come back here, let this compile. And then, so now when we enter our play mode here, you'll see that we're basically drawing all these shapes in a blue color here now. So pretty simple to do. Again, all we need to do is just kind of, create that kind of system base draw class here. I will have this up on the GitHub a little bit later today. And then, you can also check out this example of this node mover system here with the line drawer system. And again, we have access to all the drawing commands. So, we can say like, can't spell draw, hello. So you can draw like circles or spheres or something. There's all kinds of, boxes. I guess not a box. I don't know. I don't remember all the commands.
And to the guy asking, it is indeed a idiomatic for each, the same one that we talked about on stream.
That is correct. Yep.
That is looping over every line and then drawing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's basically it. It's actually pretty simple to use. There are a couple little quirks with it because I think the rendering step happens kind of at like a different portion in the frame than like the regular Unity world rendering. So if you're like having things that are in world space, well, they're either going to be basically behind all the world geometry or in front of the world geometry, just depending on what render step you use. Again, this one is using the camera pre-render, but there's also a camera post-render, so you can just kind of determine if you want them to be basically all behind or all in front of.
Well, it also depends on, there's some 3D spline stuff as well, which doesn't have that restriction in the same way. Right. Because it draws into the C buffer. So. Okay,
yeah. So, interesting little asset there. And someone also mentioned last week about another asset called A-Line. So that one, it's not on sale right now, but actually I think it's $30, so I think it's actually a little bit cheaper than Shapes on sale. But it's I guess that one is also fully compatible with dots and ECS, and I haven't experimented with that one yet, but do want to check that one out because it seems like it'd be good for, again, just kind of drawing.
I've never heard of A-Line before.
Yeah, and it's actually made by the same guy as the A-Star Pathfinding project that we were just talking about here.
Lucas?
No,
or...
Aaron Granberg. Yeah. So I can just pull this up on screen here. So this A-Line here. So again, just seems like simple, good, debug drawing things, fully compatible with
ECS, it seems.
ECS.
ECS
Yeah.
and Burst. Yeah.
So yeah, I do definitely want to check this one out and give it a good go.
Yes.
Okay, so after that, now, yeah, I guess we can go ahead and kind of move into sort of our main topic of the show here, where you were going to be showcasing some things about the project that you created for the Nordic Game Jam. So I guess before we even get into it, like, how did what was your experience like at the Nordic Game Jam? I know you've done this one a couple times, and you're quite fond of the event. You talk very highly of it the times that you've
Yes.
spoken
I
about it.
mean,
But so how'd it go this year?
it went very fun. It's always fun because I think we were 500, 600 people this year at the event.
Dang.
It's a lot of people at one
Yeah.
location, all coming to make games and do it in a weekend. It was also fun because it wasn't only Danes. It's like all of Europe coming just to this one spot. I think we had 18 or 20 nationalities,
Dang. Okay.
which is pretty good. And we even had there's a what's it called, like a game design channel called Game Maker's Toolkit, which is very
Yes.
popular.
Yeah.
And he came to do a talk. It's quite a good talk. Just inspiring people to make games and why game jams are so fun to make. Yeah.
Awesome. So is it is it basically like a 48-hour event, or
It's kind of interesting because it started back in like 2006 as like it's pretty old at this point for game jam, that is, and inspired some other game jams. I think even Global Game Jam was inspired by it.
Oh wow.
And it starts on a Thursday, and then Thursday and Friday is like talks. There's talks, a bunch of talks from the
cool.
industry about everything from game development to art to programming and so on, and just general game industry stuff. And that's on Thursday and Friday, and then on the Friday at 17 there's the keynote talk, and after the keynote talk is when the theme is announced. And we have some group forming where you get to talk with some people, figure out which group you want to be in, what game you're gonna start making, etc. And then it's
so the theme is revealed before most people are picking their teams out.
Well, it depends. This time we had two group formings, one that was before and one that was after. Okay. Normally they only have it after. So this year that there was a lot of team that already had formed, which was kind of an issue, but it changes each year. But what?
I was just gonna say, when did you get involved with your team?
After.
Nice.
There was not a lot of people left at that point. But, no, it was. I did manage to find a pretty good team. And actually,
cool. So you didn't know the people before at all?
No, not at all.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, I actually think that's one of the great parts of Nordic Game Jam. Often people just come and with the expectation that you don't really have a group and you plan on meeting others and like socializing. Yeah. And everyone has a different experience level. Some people come to learn, some people come to, really just like try hard it and make the biggest game ever. There's so many different things that can happen there. And I was very lucky because I got in a team with some cool people. They actually are a lot of them were game developers from this company called Hoodly Hood Games.
Hoodly Hood?
Hoodly Hood, and I'll quickly share my screen here.
What a fun Nordic name.
Yeah, Hoodly Hood, right there. And they make this game called Void Crew, and it's in early access, so I can definitely recommend people play that. It's not Dots, but the lead developer did want to learn more about Dots, and his name is Christian Jon. I'm going to butcher his name, but these were the people that ended up making the game together. And I guess
so. Were those people all from that team already, or is a little bit of a mix?
It's a bit of a mix. I think like Thomas and Chris was, but I don't think Nina was, and I don't think Albert was.
Okay.
Albert wasn't. But it was a nice mix of all experience levels, and not everyone knew dots from the beginning. Albert certainly didn't, but he learned it very quickly. Yeah, and what is pretty wild too is I normally would never do a. Oh, okay, this is technically the second game jam I've done in dots, but normally I wouldn't, because dots obviously there's still a learning curve. There's still like classic stuff you do at a game jam. Is like you make UI, you make animation, you make all these things that aren't really supported in dots right
Right,
now.
right.
So it's very ambitious to pick that, but because there was 3 themes at Nordic Game Jam this year. One was reflection, the one was keeping secrets, and the third one was a sense of belonging.
Okay, so you can basically pick any theme of those
Ex-
3 that you want.
exactly, pick any theme or pick a mixture of one of those 3. And the great thing there was just like we picked a sense of belonging, which our plan was, okay, we can have all these things, like you cultivate your little farm and there's going to be a bunch of them, and then we were like, a bunch of them, doesn't that sound a lot like this thing called dots, having a lot of things on screen? And then the programmers agreed, okay, sure, we can try making it in dots.
So the dots kind of came out of the theme idea. Like you guys kind of were workshopping some game ideas, and then kind of you're like, oh wait, yeah, if we're doing a bunch of these things, then that kind of sounds like something that I have a lot of experience with.
Yeah. And to those curious, because I see there's a question in chat on where it is.
Yeah.
It's located in the country of Copenhagen, and by that I mean Denmark, in the city of Copenhagen. Yeah, they have this little nice short video of the event. And usually Lego comes out on sponsors. So Unity sponsored it this year. Lego sponsored it.
Yeah,
A bunch of
I was looking on the website, and yeah, it seemed like Lego is quite involved.
like a lot of these are known titles like Ghost Ship Games, Triband played it.
Yeah, totally.
They did just YouTube recommended this very stream. That's
You're like, I'm on it.
That's funny. But yeah, and it does cost kind of a lot. It's like 500 kroner, which is
Okay, so you have to like pay an entrance fee basically. Well, yeah, because I
yeah,
guess they have talks and stuff like you were saying.
exactly. But if you're a student, it's a third of that price because they're sponsored student tickets. So different companies sponsor tickets for students.
Gotcha.
Because it's a really good event both for people from the industry to meet, game, interested newcomers, but reversely, it's also good for students wanting to talk and chat and work with game industry people.
That's awesome. And so for the people who like travel in, do they usually just stay at like kind of a hotel nearby or something?
There's a hotel very close by. It's this location. 1 second while I find a map. It's held at a university called Aalborg University, and
Gotcha.
the very nice thing here is if we quickly go on maps, and I'm kind of doxing myself, but hopefully it's fine. That's a good thing about being in Copenhagen. Most of the viewers aren't. But yeah, you have the airport here, and so it's just about having people come from the airport directly over here, where, if I can find it without doxing myself too much more, then yeah, here, Aalborg University. So you can either get there by train or metro or bus. There's a bunch of buses around, which makes the event site really great. There. And the extra nice thing here is that there's a giant sign right there and there, and in the front, so you can always see where to go because the entrance is right there, and then the hotel is like right there that people tend to use.
Nice. So it's just a walking distance, so they could be boom right there.
Yeah.
By the way, do you know if the talks are available online afterwards, or
They indeed are. Like if we quickly go here, like one can go on Nordic Game Jam's little channel, and then there's all the videos from last year. They plan on releasing the ones from this year soon. We'll see when that happens. It usually takes like a week or three for all of them to release. I know one video in particular got very popular after a certain thing happened, which is this video here got popular. But yeah, they've been doing this for a while, and the talks are all great and filmed in a very professional manner. Like it feels like a conference almost.
Is Mark's talk going to be on there, or is it on there already?
I don't. It's not on here already. I don't know if it will be there. It's. I don't think keynotes are, but maybe we'll see. There's a good chance that it will be here. So.
By the way, Danny, thank you very much for offering to host all the Hot Path viewers in your house for the Nordic Game Jam next year. So.
Yes, and yeah, I see someone commenting in chat that it brought back Bracky's, which is pretty cool.
Right.
Did you notice as well in Bracky's video that he was speaking Danish and went into Danish stores? That was quite fun.
He went into Danish lore.
It's a Danish store called Prefetch.
Oh, okay. That's the one where he like pretended to steal something, right?
Yeah, he took a blender because Blender Foundation.
So yeah. Anyways, let's talk about this game a little bit. So how did the game kind of come to be? What were some of your kind of initial, like once you got the the 3 themes that were announced? How did you kind of decide on one of the themes, and how did this specific game kind of come to be?
I mean, we had, because we're staring at a whiteboard now that we at least have some themes. It's still kind of hard to come up with ideas, so it took us a good amount of time, like an hour at least, just to come up with the idea. We initially had more ambitious plans, obviously, because it's scoping is hard, especially at the start where ideas are flowing. But we at some point through the ideation, we quickly came up with the idea of like, we want you to be able to grow a massive farm and defend against a horde of enemies, and that was like the main thing that inspired the game. It's this guy that he's a bit of an outsider. He is growing his own farm to like get a sense of belonging, which is the theme of the jam. Well, at least for us, we obviously did have like ideas for keeping secrets and mostly reflection, because reflection, there's a lot of stuff you can do there as well. But we thought this one was the most fun because it sounded like something that would be different from other people. And as someone who hasn't tried 2D game making in forever, I also found it to be an interesting challenge. And other people
goes back to the earlier topic about kind of adding some difficulty on yourself, pushing your challenge a little bit.
I see it more as, I don't see it as adding a difficulty for yourself. I see it as putting on a challenge.
Yeah. No, that's what I always like to do with game jams as well. It's like if there's some little thing that I've kind of been wanting to try out but haven't really got a good opportunity. Game jams are a great opportunity for all those things.
Yeah, and I mean, just by picking dots, you're already in for a challenge, because there's so many things that you then have to figure out how not only to do yourself, but also how to teach others in the same time. Because no matter how great of a developer you are, it can still be hard to get into dots if you haven't tried it before.
Right. And especially making it over the course of a weekend, and like you mentioned, some people didn't have any experience with dots before. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, another classic is just, this thing here where you go behind something and you go in front of. Oh, even that we need to re-implement because we don't have proper 2D.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Well, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about development. How did like what were the some of the first kind of main tasks you guys started to tackle?
Uh, that's a good question. I don't even remember. I mean, the main thing was just like it wasn't even getting a player in because we had that working pretty quickly, just having a little sphere moving around.
Right.
The difficulty was like, okay, we knew we wanted enemies, and we knew we wanted like a horde of enemies to spawn around. So okay, let's add that. Um, so we had one guy working on getting enemies to spawn, but we didn't have any enemy behavior or enemies in general. So we had another guy making sure that he got a one monster was moving to one other sphere, and then many monsters could move to that sphere, and that you could start collecting these little seedlings here. And obviously by then it was still spheres. Um, and I obviously couldn't really work on that many things because then we start getting conflicts. So instead, I tried helping out, teaching how one would do that. Initially, it was very difficult because, like, oh, something you're used to be able to do in a game object land, like having a trigger, and then the child have a no having the main thing have a collider, and that be a rigid body, but then the child's is going to be like a bigger collider that is a trigger, that is your like sensing area where you can pick stuff up.
Right.
That sort of thing is not directly going to work with dots. And not only that, we later on found out that our little hack for doing what is essentially that had a huge performance concern. Like just 100 enemies overlapping with each other already went from 100 FPS down to 4. Which is not really a playable game. If it's 4 FPS, then it's a slideshow.
No.
A really fast slideshow, but still a slideshow.
Yeah, your game turns into a turn-based game now.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if the enemies are turned on. I'll quickly check. Yes, they are. Awesome. Yeah, so when we had like this mechanic here working, and they move very fast in this version. I don't know why. Oh, because I didn't push my last changes to the jam. But you can see they like move quickly around, and you can start shooting them out. Doop. And that was like the main thing that we had working. And it came in very hot, all the changes, because we had the 2D artists working in their little Unity scene, not being able to use any of our stuff, not even having the 2D render set up yet. So they worked in an isolated area on Saturday. And at the same time, Saturday, we didn't really have anything but the collection mechanic and something spawning on the screen. Some of the enemies spawning, not really moving. And, the spawning of the enemies was in a separate scene and working separately from the actual, like, shooting mechanics. And all the other, like, we had so many things that were not in the same scene, merge conflicting.
Sure. Yeah.
So like Saturday, more like Sunday morning, like between 1 a.m. and 7 a.m. when everyone went home, I had to like put it all together.
Did you stay at the
and barely
jam
got any
site
sleep,
overnight?
Yeah. I think I got 3 hours sleep total.
Did you just like take a nap in the corner or something?
No, you can't sleep at the event site.
Okay. So
I had to go home.
You went home.
Yeah. But I mean, it worked. At least the bus was there at, was it 7 or 8 a.m. I went home, so I could actually
go
make my
home
way
after sunrise and
exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah. No, at least it worked. And then when everyone else came in, they pulled through to the last bit, and I could just help them during the final things for I
Getting
think
ready for the submission.
exactly. And like I think the shooting mechanic didn't really work at that point still, and the UI wasn't really working. There was some weird bugs that we still had to fix. Audio still not fully implemented. But they pulled through to the last bit there, while I was still sort of waking up because 2 hours of sleep is not a lot.
No.
But yeah. Any other questions?
I guess in general, how did it go for the people who were using dots for the first time? Like, definitely, I'm sure there was kind of a learning curve, but at least by the end of the jam, were they able to do kind of some things on their own, like kind of self-sufficiently?
Definitely. I was very surprised to see that they also had two different degrees of knowledge here. Like one was a game developer working on Void Crew at Hoodly Hood, who had played a little around with dots before in earlier versions.
Okay.
Whereas the other person doesn't really use Unity and had never tried dots before. But even he managed to make something and get it working. Funnily enough, he had to watch our videos during the stream, during the jam. It was it actually worked out. So you had a video on instantiation, and he was tasked making the enemy spawning logic, and so he found out how to get the subscenes working and baking a prefab and then instantiating that in a system, and what an entity command buffer is. It's definitely learnable, and I think what really helped here, that can sometimes be hard when you learn it on your own, is, well, for one thing, I was always there, which that is kind of helpful too, because I was basically an encyclopedia.
Right. Yeah.
But also
the walking API reference.
Yes, I was co-pilot.
There you go.
But what's it called? Like I think it was also it's a classic thing, and Mark in his talk also goes into this, which is that when you have an idea for a project and you start working on it and tackling it in that specific context, then learning is a lot easier, because you know exactly what you want to learn at the time you learn it, and you don't really have time to like figure out the right way. You just force yourself into learning it. So like you don't care about, oh, is this entity command buffer the right way? How am I really going to learn it? It's the stress, because there is a lot of stress in the game jam, because you don't want to fail your peers, feel like a failure to your peers more, and at the same time, you also want to build this thing, so you're sort of forced to learn it in a quick pace, and you have the context for what you need to learn. You're not gonna learn a huge category of things and not try it out. You get to experiment with it and fail a lot and do it very quickly. So I think actually it's like the perfect starting place to try out a new topic, and dots was the topic here, and it is learnable in a game jam. I just think you shouldn't expect to have a working game at the end if you make a dots game for a game jam.
Fair.
And the other guy definitely I had some struggles too, because there's like two degrees to this. One thing is learning entities itself, like instantiation and stuff like that. But then
API
there's also
and how to do that. Yeah.
Exactly. But then there's also all the layers on top and the APIs we have on top, which is like the physics package, learning what happens when you bake a collider, what happens with the trigger, how does this interact, how do I do a raycast in this physics world, what is the physics world in this case, like all of these like layers on top. So even if you know entities, and you kind of have to know entities in order to learn physics, then learning physics can still be hard. And for me, there were some learnings too. Like I did not know that triggers, having a bunch of triggers and them overlapping, is such a painful performance problem. Your computer cannot handle it. It does not compute. Um,
And that's
and
just
obviously,
because, is that just due to how like the physics system like kind of spatially partitions things, I guess, or
yes, exactly. Like there's a very useful thing we can do here in order to show that.
by the way, I'm guessing the answer to this question of do you use physics was yes.
Yes, I do. Wrong thing. Physics debug display. There we go. Draw broad face. There we go. Yeah. So and this is very useful for the people that haven't tried before. There is a component you can add to a subscene in order to get a little extra. Also, I'm gonna quickly. I can't turn off the audio. This is very annoying.
It's
I'm
not
hearing
coming
audio
through.
on
It's
top
not
of what
coming
I'm.
through for us, but
Yeah, I'm aware, but this is oh my god, I can't. It's very distracting, but it's fine. So it's very useful that I can like see the different
yes, yeah.
layers of what is happening here. And one of the things that happen if you have two what's it called, like rigid bodies overlapping, is that there's a phase in physics that will try to like make them not overlap. But if it's a trigger and it's not allowed to move it at the same time as well, because we're constantly resetting the physics velocity, so it's not allowed to move, then you know it doesn't, it's not able to do anything about
You're
it.
kind of fighting
So
with it a little bit.
you're constantly, it tries to like push it away and then does another iteration trying to push it away, and it can't, and it's just very slow. So having a bunch of things overlapping is just a big cost. And to anyone that's ever tried to have a bunch of physics colliders that all touch each other, the moment things touch is the expensive part because of this.
Also, what are those colliders? They look like soccer balls rather than like a primitive. Like all the spheres.
Those are sphere. They're just normal sphere colliders.
Oh, it looks like they have a lot more like. I guess I didn't realize they probably have a lot of polygons around it, right?
Let's see if I can find game manager. I think it's the one that actually spawns the prefabs. So like an example of an enemy here, you can see it's just a normal sphere collider that is a trigger. So there's nothing really interesting there.
Okay, they just look like they have like a bunch of like polygons on them, I guess. But
yes,
makes sense. It's probably.
And also like another thing that we realized is instead of like for all the what's it called, like instead of the pickup collection thing being you know a trigger in and of itself wrapped around the player, which you know is obviously going to force overlapping normally. It's much better to just have a player that has a rigid body and a collider like normal, and then you use a overlap cast in code instead, and that then determines you know all your pickup logic. And for like the enemies here, like when a target, example, this target here is close by. I don't know why this one is not moving over there. It should also find it, which means that all of these normally would have it initially when we made the game. They all had triggers around them, but it's much better to just have each of them, you know, spawn a position and then check if there's any rigid body that has a specific component on it around it. Right, and I'm going to show that code later as well. Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't think there's anything more.
Yeah, no, I think it would be good to.
Any other questions?
I know. I just think it would be good to get into some of the code stuff. I think you know one thing, kind of related to this about like, yeah, I want to see kind of the movement logic, because you're actually not locking things on the z-axis. You're kind of basically, yeah, moving things on kind of like an angular plane almost, so you can get that good kind of proper layering and everything.
Yes, and let's see if I can find that.
Very well organized for a game jam.
Yeah, this was the other developer that did this, because this is definitely not my style, which is also why is in background has more stuff in it than just being in the background. He was not content with that, but it has the farming system. That's not the farming system should technically be in farming, but it isn't.
Shh, I won't tell.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. In a game jam, it's important that it works.
Yes.
But let's see here. So the thing we were just talking about is y equals z, which apparently is not in here. Is it in here? Yes, it's in here. So the way that works is, and you can actually see in the editor, it's also like this. Even though if I like take the player, for instance, if I move him up, let's notice how he like live update there.
Yeah.
So the way it works is simply I have a system
working on the editor system.
Exactly. It works in player and it works in the editor, and it runs right after the transform system. So that means all of the local transforms have already been used and updated the local to world, and then I just need to modify the local to world to the correct position. And so that means that since all of my actual simulation behavior, the thing that moves them around, turns them up and down, physics, etc., is still in the local transform, it's fine for me to move around the local to world, because the local to world is then going to get reset the next frame,
right?
Based on the local transform.
Cool. That's smart. Yeah.
Which it can also be a great way to do like camera stuff in a specific way, or like a little animation. Here I'm using it for the fact that I can get out the position, which is column 3 of the transform matrix.
Right. Yeah.
And then that gives me the position, and then I'm just setting the C position equal to the Y position. Something I'm also doing is I'm only doing this trick if there's a material mesh info, so if it's actually something that we're drawing, because I don't need to do it for anything else. I'm also have the special component where it has the same behavior, but if there's a is in background on it, then it can also like move back and forward.
Yeah, I kind of saw that with the little farm tiles, how they're like a little bit further back.
Exactly.
So yeah,
so they don't have
so map. Yeah, you can always walk above them, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah, that's mostly how that works.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. I like that approach a lot. And then so basically everything is just on like a perfect 45-degree plane, because you're basically just setting your y equal to z.
Yes, and it means I can use the local transforms like normal. So the whole game, if you actually notice when I do this, and I put the game manager on and draw all of the like colliders, we go into the scene. The whole game is still very much a flat game.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Still a flat game, but it looks 3D in the 3D because of how I'm setting the local to world. Oh my god, that music is just distracting. It's really good music, by the way.
I was gonna say, it's good music, yeah.
Oh, you can hear it now?
No. I played it before.
Oh, you played it. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And there's some fun little sound effects for shooting, and it's great.
Yeah. No, they do good with that.
Yes. Anything else that's interesting to show? Anything people want to see? Obviously, I can show how the physics is set up. I can show how the animation is done, because, like, for instance, if you look at the character, there's animation going this way, this way, this way, and this way.
Yeah, let's take a look at the animation setup.
Sure. Because if we look on the player, he's just a player prefab, nothing interesting going on here other than he has a sphere collider because he's a character and he has like a rigid body. But underneath, there's a quad that obviously moves because there's a parent relationship. And the the player itself is just a normal quad. However, I have this special little material on it, boom boom, called the player material, and it's using a shader. I call it the sprite shader with a texture on it, which has the like texture sheet. If I can open it up, it's like a classic, texture sheet sort of thing here.
Yep.
Which means that a way to think about it is just there's a bunch of offsets, and you just need to change the offsets in order to get the right thing. And so all this shader does, I don't know, is there an easy way for me to find a shader? Because I think someone moved stuff around to actually be in a better place than where I put it. Sprite shader here. And did it move onto the there? So yeah, it's simply just, you can put in an XYZ coordinate and then pushes it around here, like sampling it at a different point at the texture. And you can say like how big or small part of the texture it should sample. So for the actual animation then, what I have here is I have this animated sprite offer, which takes in the main texture. This is mostly also just to validate that the texture of the material is the same as the texture on the sprite sheet that you put in here. And then you also have to specify manually what the grid size is of every sprite inside of it is. That's just like a constraint I put on. Then I have this array of arrays where the outer array is just all of the animation clips. And then the inner array item here is an array of all of the sprites in that animation. So like we can see here for idling, so when I'm just standing still, I'm only showing this here. Also, I don't know if I'm able to show the sprites while two coming out. Yeah, there. Yeah, okay, now it's loaded out. So now you can see it's just gonna show that one always. And well, animation number 1 is gonna be switching through that one, then that one, and then that one. Animation number 2 is gonna flip through these 3, etc. So I have an animation to pick per direction, and I could have added more animations in here. And what it breaks down to is it breaks down to 2 buffers. One buffer is just a raw set of all the sprites in order. And then the other dynamic buffer is then a offset into that raw set as well as the count, right? So that way, if I pick animation number 0 in my dynamic buffer of animations, it will say, oh yeah, it's going to be at starting here all the way to there. And if we look here, sprite animation clip, you can see start index 0, and it's going to be 1 frame. Start index 1, it's going to be 3, which, we can see up here. It's 1 here, it's 3 here, and then it continues like that. Because we counted 3 and we already had 1, then it's 4. The next start index.
That's just how it knows which basically portions of that texture to iterate, to loop over.
Exactly. And the sprite frame element buffer itself is the one that has all of the offsets on the texture.
So when it's standing still, is it technically it's looping over that 1 frame of animation, basically?
Yeah. And it's just a simple modular operation. I can show that in code later. But it's this is saying index 1, count 3. So that means looping over this one, then this one, then this one, and then it restarts to this one, right?
Yeah.
So it just switches out which like small segment of the buffer it uses.
Cool.
Yeah, and the code for that is fairly simple. I should somewhere. Man, I'm not used to everything being in folders. It's not how I normally navigate. I normally navigate like this.
Shift.
Yep. Okay, so we can see that looping over right down here. This is the entire animation system. Yeah, it simply finds the what's it called material property, so it can change the offset,
Right.
as well as which animation is currently selected, then the buffer of sprites and the buffer of clips, and then it says, okay, well, elapsed time times 4, so every 4 seconds it should switch clip, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
No,
is it?
1/4.
Yeah. So
I think it's 1/4
the
of a second.
animations basically run on a fixed step of when they update. Yeah. So the
Exactly.
animations always play at the same speed. Because I
Yes,
mean,
all
it's
animations
all
do.
just walking animations basically.
Yeah, and if we wanted all animations to be at different speeds, it would be no harder than to simply, you know, have the animation clip say which speed
Yeah,
it needs
you just
needed to
have a
be.
different. Yeah.
Because I do have the animation speed here, essentially. Like I can get information about a given animation here.
Right. It's just another
Yeah.
data component.
So I'm just like picking the frame index and then picking out the right frame to draw, and then that's what I'm setting on my material. It's a very simple way to do animation, but it's very powerful
Yeah, I like
because you're
it.
essentially just switching the offset and scale.
Clean, simple approach. It's good.
Um, yeah. Anything else you want me to show?
Well, yeah, let's see some of the physics stuff. I know we do have a couple of questions in here related to physics, but I mean, if you just kind of want to
Yes.
take it away from the start, and then we can kind of maybe get into some specific questions here.
Yeah. I think the first part of this is just picking up. Now I need to remember where picking up stuff is. Seedlings. There you go. Seedling capture system. So this is what it will go find the player, and then the player, and especially specifically, it will find this thing here, which is always at the exact same position as the player. This is making sure it's targets against the player, and then it loops for that, looking for that, and then it creates a little. I don't. This name is not correct. It says it's a job. It's not a job. It's something called a collector, and then this will
Okay.
this will be something that I can ask the collision world. Hey, everything that is in the collision world, which is where all physics is stored, can I get an overlap sphere cast? So I'll go into detail about this in 1 second, but the first thing is just anytime that you're working with physics, you ideally want it to happen in the fixed step simulation system, and you want for if you're asking questions about what happened in physics, this frame, then you want to make sure that it's after the physics system group. That way you're not I've seen this a lot, and it kind of makes sense why people fall into this, which is if you don't put this here and it goes before, it actually means that now you're asking the physics too early, what's it called?
It's basically
early.
the data from the previous frame at that point, right?
No, not even. No. It will force an early physics tick. So you're just blocking all of the physics jobs from running nicely. So
it's worse than being a frame off.
It has a huge performance cost if you do it. It mostly happens if you do it in the middle, right? When it thinks that the physics world, that this system needs the physics world, so therefore it has to finish everything that it was doing with the physics world, and so you're just stopping it mid-track, which is terrible for performance. I've seen it so often. So anyways, make sure that you do it after physics systems, and then it's just a matter of getting this thing called the physics world singleton, which inside of it has both the collision world and the physics world. So I think it's the physics world. And for both of them, you can ask certain questions about the state of the physics simulation. One of which is that you can do a collision world.overlap sphere. So we have the collision world now. We can ask, hey, can I put a sphere inside of here at this position? And the sphere is going to be a radius of 5. And could you please make sure that when you loop over every single hit, that you use this thing to collect those hits. And this collection of hits is what determines, did I hit an entity that has these components on it? Does it fit this specific criteria? And something additional you can do is you can put in a collision filter, and that collision filter will, just like how a normal physics system, like we know in game objects, you can have physics layers. This is the exact same approach where you can say, hey, with my overlap sphere, it should act as if it was an enemy that is trying to look for seedlings. So I think this is actually, that makes sense. And that it means that it will, overlap all the seedlings. So it will actually find every seedling at this position.
Right. Yeah. You only get the things that you're trying to overlap with versus, yeah.
Exactly. And the nice thing here is that it doesn't actually add that sphere into the physics world itself. So it won't, cause all of this like behavior of trying to decollide and trying to, do things on the physics world. So you're basically just querying, asking for a question. So it's a very fast thing to do because you're just asking, hey, does this thing exist? And it's even faster because it has, layer filtering. So it can early out a lot of this query. Doesn't need to check the bounding box of if it knows the bounding box has this only these things in this layer in it. It doesn't need to go into the whole bounding box, right? Stuff like that.
Right.
The collector itself is just like when you implement this thing called the I collector, you have to implement early out on first, max fraction, number of hits, and add hit. I don't actually know what number of hits is used for. I think we should get Philip on the show someday. He might know.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've gone into these collectors, but they're super useful. You can basically make your own custom collectors and define rules about, only return me the first entity. Yeah, there you go.
I just noticed someone asking the question, and I'm like, it isn't supposed to be a job. It's not a job. It's just a thing that collects.
So the collector, you can kind of use that to do spatial queries to, you can kind of do like almost like an overlap sphere type thing. Say, look at all the entities in this radius and then return like the closest one or something.
Exactly. So here we're asking, hey, give me back all of the things in this position at this radius, and then the collector will, for everything that was inside the circle, it will call add hit, and then you can determine what you want to do with that hit. Does it actually count as something that you've hit, or do you want to look further?
Yeah, like you could even get like a list of things returned. So like maybe you have like you're maintaining a collection of like return like the 3 closest entities or something.
Exactly.
And there are also some of these built-in collectors, which actually were super helpful for me making custom collectors just to kind of reference to see like, what features are available in these collectors and how they set things up. So it's a cool thing to look into.
Yeah, it definitely is. And if you guys remember like a few weeks ago when I did the what's it called, like orbiting camera around a character controller thing. The character controller's orbiting camera is actually also using this. There's a collector specifically making sure that you can ignore a flag post because it's annoying when that little thing gets in the way, and it really should just be able to move around. Stuff like that. There's a bunch of useful stuff you can do with this, like looking up the entities even when you're collecting, asking for additional information, or like normally what you would see in a capture is that it would like create a list and then you use the list for something else. But for my purpose, I don't need to store a thing in the list. I can just, as I've hit something, consider the changes upon that and then do the changes, which is what I'm doing here. Like I'm saying, hey, okay, is the seedling currently free, then I should try and capture it. And then capturing it means all of this, like set it as captured, and who am I trying to, who's the player that I'm trying to move around, and then what is the physics I should start swinging around with. Like I'm setting it directly instead of having a collection that then does a post process on that, which would be more cost more to do. And the nice thing here is all of this is burstable.
Yeah, yeah.
Very fast. And even nicer, collision world is something that you can pass into a job. Not a collision world itself, but you can pass in. I think they have some specific types that you can pass in, so you can actually start doing this on a job.
Okay, so you can do it in parallel if you wanted to.
Exactly. There's something in here. It's also in the documentation.
Sweet.
Anyways, that's
on that. Why do you do overlap cast every frame, or do you use some type of time slicing method? So this looks like you're doing this every frame, right?
Every physics frame, yes. But because it's just every physics frame, it's doing the physics anyways, and also it's bursted and my cat moves stuff around. But like it's not really that expensive to do 50 times 50 times a second, I suppose. For the most part, that's not going to be expensive. Also, you could technically just put this in a what's it called? There's like a custom version of a fixed step simulation system group that you can use. It's called.
Is it the variable?
Yeah.
The variable rate group.
Yeah. Or you can just use this as like a example, because you can see here it's like a rate manager, and then you set the rate that it uses.
You can use the good old iRate manager.
Yeah.
My favorite type of ECS.
I think variable rate system is also something to look into. Anyways, I normally will look stuff up at the time that I need to know about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's mostly not a performance concern doing this. I don't need to do time slicing every frame or think about that. And if I did, there's an easy way, which is the rate manager.
And you had mentioned that kind of like your initial pass of implementing this, there was like some super poor performance, right? That was for this, right? So how did you end up going about resolving that?
Well, the poor performance came when the reason. Okay, so the actual reason that this was called a job is because we initially used something called the iTrigger events job, which is in fact a job.
Yeah.
And that one, you sort of have to look through every single thing that you're in the simulation world, and it also there's it's not so much that it itself is costly, but dependent on like it's very good at like a wind. Say you had a wind area where all your enemies and all your players should move when they're in that wind zone. That's where you would use a trigger event. Because there's a lot of things that you want to move and impact, and also you can be pretty sure that you don't have this problem of it trying to fix overlapping. The problem that we had in our project was because we have a rigid body and that is surrounded by a trigger, and that the trigger itself is even considered has to be a rigid body. There was some weird stuff like that because we needed to know it was a different sort of collision, because the player itself was also a trigger. It basically ran into this weird cyclic resolve situation where you had a trigger and you had another trigger, and both of them rigid bodies, and both of them trying to apply some like physics to get them away from each other, and that doesn't really work. So it wasn't that iCollector or iTrigger events job is slow. What's slow is when you have a physics setup that is wrong. Like when the physics
you're kind
set
of
up in your
ignoring
scene.
some certain things, and then it the physics system doesn't like when you're doing that. So
Yeah. But generally, when you structure a physics-based project, you should make sure that um, things are overlapping as little as possible. Like none of your
that's
things
fair.
should really be
Yeah.
overlapping. And if they do, maybe you should think about adding physics layers in order for them to not overlap. Like for instance, we've set up the physics layer in a way that let's go in here. For instance, enemies never actually collide with any of the other enemies, and the player never collides with the player or any of the seats, but they do collide with the enemies.
So
Um,
that I think does this kind of answer this question here? So how do you set up collision layers for an object without using physics shape authoring from the physics samples?
yes, indeed. And it's actually kind of an interesting way that we did this. So one of the things that can be hard when writing a baking system is whenever you are planning on adding or removing things. And that can deter a lot of people. But making a baking system for setting, like just setting variables, is really easy and really powerful. Um, so what we have here is update in a post baking system group. So this is after all of the physics baking has happened, which means that all of the physics collider has been set up. Physics collider is normally added by you putting a collider on your offering object. And then I just ask, hey, is this an enemy? And I put on include prefab just in case someone turned it to a prefab. Because even during baking, something is still going to have that prefab tag
It's
on it.
just so funny that you did all this in a weekend game jam. I love it.
Oh yeah. Uh, I mean, I like what I do.
Yeah. Heck yeah. No, this is awesome.
um, yeah, it did mean that we have to use unsafe, but obviously this now you can just query for specifically what you need to change your filter off, and then put on the correct filter. That is how I did it without using any sort of physics shape offering. Yeah.
That's great.
And it's all in one place, so you can very easily see how everything is set up against each other.
Right.
It's obviously not very customizable from like an offering side, because a game designer couldn't say
Yeah,
what
go in
should
and
we
just
match with.
hit a couple check boxes and yeah.
Yeah, but there's nothing stopping one from doing exactly this, but where these variables instead were from some other piece of data.
Yeah.
You can just
Some
in
editor
baking have
script
it,
or something. Yeah.
like enemy data here could actually just have stored the layers it was on or the layers it wasn't. So this is not far away from that.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, it would be kind of nice if there was like a little kind of compiler warning or writer warning that pops up where if it kind of detects you're using some type of physics and make sure that you're putting it in the correct place in the player loop.
Oh yeah. The over here, this
Yeah.
no the this yeah. I mean, yes, it's certainly a thing we've thought about. There's actually a lot of cases where we've been. Wouldn't it be nice if we just had an analyzer that gave you these sort of recommendations? Because there's a ton of it. Like
Yeah.
you should, for the most part, not put ref rw in your jobs. Like you shouldn't think that you can just pass ref rw to a job. So there should be a warning telling you not to put ref rw in a job. Stuff like that. There's a whole list.
I'm sure.
Yes. Any other questions?
Well, yeah. So just on the topic of the collectors, those actually have been around for quite a while. I
They
don't
have.
think at least when I was using them, I don't think they were like super well documented. Like it was only like a small little section of the documentation, just kind of mentioning them. But yeah, look into the ECS samples as well as just dig through the source code. That's kind of mostly how I learned, is just kind of going into them, because I mean they're set up pretty straightforward. Like it's pretty easy to learn from the source code. So yeah, if
Yeah,
you
and
do find
and
those
if
interesting, then yeah, go ahead and check them out.
and this is also one of those cases where it's actually possible to look at the documentation, because collision queries, I think it is, actually has code in it telling you how to do this very thing. Is it here? Collider cast, I think, is one of them. Yeah, you can say, hey, collision will cast collider, and then it shows you how to do this. And collector is in here somewhere. Yes, I can definitely recommend people check this one out.
Yeah, I mean, there's some other things not related to your game, but is there anything else in your game that was kind of interesting that you want to showcase here?
I mean, a lot of it is repeats of what we've done on the other shows. For instance, if you look in game, there's some text mesh pro stuff here, like these little numbers going up, and that's just a very classic thing that I've done a lot on the show, where I have an offer, it has the game object version of it, and then as soon as, if I can open the script, you add the game object here, then something is looking for that soil tag, and then as soon as it spawns in, wherever did I put that? Yeah, here. Look for everything that hasn't spawned yet. And if it hasn't spawned yet, spawn the text at the correct location there. And then start with having a count of 0, and then add that text mesh to the entity that is actually, in our scene, the one that also draws this soil. Yeah, so that's a very classic thing that I, keep doing in all the other projects as well.
Yeah,
like that was
nice.
the same way that the player character controller in the previous projects were working. Yes.
It's a good question to kind of close things out here. In retrospect, do you feel like you really needed ECS for this project, or do you think it was maybe overkill?
Well, it was definitely overkill. The fun part was especially the we were like, okay, we want many things in this game to like happen all at the same time, and we in the end did succeed with that. Like, you definitely in this game have the ability to get higher numbers than you would be in a game object project, but that didn't used to be the case. Like, before the physics problems, if we hadn't fixed the physics problems, we would actually have been slower than a normal game object game. And we would also, be in the scenario where we've spent more time not even having made the game, which is annoying for a game jam. And then on top of that, we didn't even get the performance out of it. So, like, it's just a lose-lose at that point. We were very lucky that I ended up fixing the physics issues we were having. But yeah, no, it's definitely overkill.
How did you kind of come to solve those physics problems? Was that something that you just kind of had to just bang out on your own for a little while, or did you kind of have an idea of some ways to fix it already?
Good old classic way of fixing performance problems is, you open the profiler, you see what's slow, then you notice, oh, what is slow here is not something, related to our systems, it's related to physics systems. And then you notice, okay, it's taking a lot of time to do this one job that is about like moving stuff away from each other. And you're like, well, the way our project was structured means that everything is going to do that quite a lot. Is there any way that I know that I can stop doing that? So that is like the approach I took, and then realized, okay, well, what's another way of doing a trigger? Well, that's just having a cast and asking the world. And then I switched over to that approach as soon as I thought of it, which doesn't take that long when you know how to do that. But
Fair.
it was mostly about like realizing that problem, and we did so. I think it was like 10 11 p.m. on Saturday, which is very late in the game jam.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And so was the game jam or so when did it end? It ended like Sunday evening, basically.
Yeah, no, not evening, more like 15. It is Sunday at
Okay,
15.
kind of afternoon.
Yeah, 3 p.m. So,
Yeah, nice.
um, yeah,
And is this a ranked game jam or is it just kind of more for fun?
it
Like,
it it used to be ranked, and then in the last 2 or 3 years they stopped doing that because the problem is, it's a lot of industry people and it's also a lot of students.
so then
So
like Naughty Dog just rolls up and they're like, "Yo."
we pretty much every year that I've been there, there has been a team at IO Interactive that comes there just to form their own team. They don't mingle with anyone else. They obviously do chat if someone comes up and talks about it, but it's like, they keep to themselves and just
It's like,
hacks away,
yeah, we're
making
we're
their
not doing the same thing here. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. They have their artists, they have their programmers, etc. They use Unity, funnily enough, for when they are at the game jam. Um, Last year they actually did make an ECS game
Oh,
um, for not a game jam. But
that's cool.
they just come in there to try hard it, and it doesn't really work well if there's that versus students
Some
that
guys, yeah, who are still in college. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, another way of looking at it is, of course, that can still work because it's not always the try hardest, the experienced people that actually end up succeeding in this sort of scenario. When it used to did be a competition, there was this guy that did win, even against the odds, even in spite of using Lua for his game, which is weird. I know it's popular for some. It's a game called Baba Is You.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. A lot of people know what Baba Is You is, and yeah, it's he won even though there was a lot of industry people at the time.
Nice.
Yeah, but I mean, I can definitely, if you are in Europe or want to take the long trip, I have seen Americans come to the event, which is impressive. I can definitely recommend coming to Nordic Game Jam because it is a lot of industry folk. It's all of Triband, all of IO Interactive, all of and to those that don't know IO Interactive, the Hitman games are made by IO.
Yeah, yeah.
It's Triband, it's Ghost Ship Games, it's Lego, and all the Lego games you've ever played is likely made here in Denmark, except TD Games. TD Games are elsewhere,
Right,
but
right.
they are still owned by the company here. Um, then I don't know. There's just a lot of game studios here. Plated, Tactile, Cybo.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, it's a good way to mingle with the game industry.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I don't even know if there was anything really comparable to that in the US. I know there
I mean, the
was.
closest is Global Game Jam, I would assume.
Right. Yeah, yeah. But that's, yeah, more of a, yeah, again, it's a global thing. It's not really like a specific to one location.
Well, Global Game Jam still has the advantage of,
Right.
picking
There are
locations.
regional locations. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like Ludum Dare, which is always online.
Right.
At least Global Game Jam is like one physical spot. Like in Denmark, the Global Game Jam we have in Denmark is actually at the Lego office. So you come
Oh,
into
cool.
Global Game Jam, and no, I've last time I was there, I got Lego Star Wars, the video game, as well as a few Lego sets,
Nice.
just for coming there
Come
to a
up.
free game jam.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Any other memories or fun highlights from the Nordic Game Jam this year?
I don't think so. I mean, it was a blast. It was really nice to meet everyone.
That's great. Was there a good
We did.
amount of people from Unity there, other than yourself,
Yeah, I
obviously?
mean, we actually had a booth. We were sponsoring the event, and we had a booth so people could come ask us questions. Um, yeah, a lot of people came asking about one thing, and then A lot of people were also just there for technical questions. And we also were showing off Muse, both Muse textures, Muse sprites, Muse
Oh yeah, because the
animation,
new stuff, yeah, the animation and the behavior,
the behavior, and
the
I think what was it?
context
Chat.
aware muse chat. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. All of that we had live showcases of. Um, so people got to
good
try it,
stuff.
and people also got to complain about it. All good. And we had free cat stickers, which was also
Free
very cool.
cat stickers.
Yeah, someone at
Have little like
Unity
Unity
had some
logos
cat
for the
stickers.
cat ears.
Someone at Unity had some cat stickers, and they were really cool. And everyone came to the booth just to get cat stickers.
So yeah, what was that one thing that was asked the most?
Well, runtime fee, obviously.
Interesting that yeah, it didn't seem like a lot of people at GDC were like super hung up on that. At least,
Yeah, and for the most part, it wasn't that people were hung up on it either. It was more like every now and again you got it, a question about it, or like someone mentioning their concern, which is a good
it's
thing
fair.
because
Yeah,
you know it is something that people care about. It just puts us in a little weird spot because for, they it was mostly engineers at the event, so it wasn't really someone touching that part of the company.
right.
Um, yeah.
All right. And then just, yeah, a couple other miscellaneous questions that we can kind of close things out here with, just because I saw that these are actually kind of related a little bit here. So, is it good practice to use a lot of component lookups, or should I avoid it to achieve better performance?
I mean, I'm a little confused because it says a lot of lookup components, and there's no such thing as a lookup component, but that you can look up components. Um, but
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
for looking up components, it we generally say don't do it. I mean, you shouldn't do it if you don't need to. The problem is a lot of problems in game development often is this sort of thing where you know
One thing needs to reference another thing, and yeah.
exactly like a player moves to a target. Orbiting an orbiting camera needs to move itself, but it also obviously needs to move the around something, and therefore it needs to look up the thing that it's moving around.
Right.
The general recommendation is it's costly every time you do a lookup, and it is still meant to be as efficient as it can be to look up that data. It's a lot more efficient certainly than game objects are, but it's still not the thing that we recommend doing. Um,
Right. Yeah. I'm assuming you're using some type of hashing where you can basically just get the memory address of that right away. But
well,
the
pretty
the
much,
issue with
yeah.
that is it's still going to be most likely a cache miss because you're probably going to be like, looking at one place of code and then, referencing some other place in memory.
Yeah, and we do have caching structures. Like if you're looking up the same archetype multiple times, like the same chunk multiple times, then the caching structure of a component lookup will make sure to cache that chunk. Um,
Nice.
so it can do a fast lookup, but it's still not as performant as looping over an array, which chunks are looping over an array. So I can't really answer if it's a good or bad practice. Often it's a necessary evil more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Again, better to use things like, iterating through things in like a
a
idiomatic
linear
for
fashion.
each or a job, what is it, iJob entity.
Yes, iJob entity, iJob chunk, and idiomatic for each are
Yeah,
generally the recommendation, but
better
not
to do
all.
that. But yeah, again, one entity is going to need to reference, another entity at some point. So it's just kind of like,
Yeah,
minimizing that to, only exactly what you need. And yeah.
yeah, and there are cases where you can, instead of doing, like, say you had a bunch of bees all targeting the player, it is better that all of those bees doesn't actually each do a component lookup of the player. Instead, you would like your job would pre-cache the player position, and then all the bees moved in towards the player. So there's some strategies that you can do in order to stop doing these component lookups as well, which is another reason that we recommend doing against it. We're trying to make it, easy to get on the right path with entities. It doesn't mean that, there was an old phrasing of Dutch going performance by default, but it doesn't really work. You can't have performance by default. People can always make bad code. You can make bad code in entities too. Entities code can be slow, which is also what this project kind of shows.
Yeah.
That entities code can 100%. Be slow.
Yeah.
But it's more about like gaining some strategies and like making it easy for you to be on the right path. And that's why we recommend against lookups. It's because if we recommend against it, it means that hopefully people start strategizing, okay, I can just cache the position and then everything moves towards that target. Stuff like that. You build strategies that doesn't involve those expensive lookups. So in a way, that's what entities is also about. Entities, it's not necessarily performance. It's just, trying to steer you on the right path so you can have as performant of a game as possible.
That was beautiful. That was extremely well said. Although missed opportunity for saying, puts you on the hot path.
Set the thing. That's cool.
Set the thing. And then quick, just little related one to this. So you can use lookup to modify components. Always set there read only. So yes, you indeed can. And then if you want to showcase that here a little bit.
This is what I did for like my collector has a component lookup on it, and then the captured seedling state, for instance, I'm looking up the state of the seedling and then changing it. So this definitely works.
Yeah. And just, the thing to be aware of with this is, when you have something that's marked for read and write access, then the automatic dependency system is going to kind of take that into account. So, it's going to be a little bit difficult to say write to things in parallel, although you can kind of like add an attribute to them to say, no, I know what I'm doing and I can, write to this in parallel because I know that I'm not going to be writing, to the same component from, two different places.
Yeah, this is the one that does that promise.
Yeah.
And you can also mark stuff read only. By default, everything is read write. So for instance, I think this one I'm not actually doing anything on like setting it. So you can see here I'm only looking something up on it. So that's definitely read only. So I should really mark it with read only.
Yeah. And then also when you're assigning it, you already have set that is read only to true. And I believe is it read only is set to false by default, right?
Yeah.
So exactly. If you don't include anything, then it is.
So this is read write. And this is read only. That's also why if you type in false now, writer will say that it's grayed out.
It's grayed out because it's the default value.
It's redundant.
Right. And then, is there any kind of performance read impact for setting something read only other than like the dependency issues that I just kind of mentioned?
It's quite the opposite. If you set something as read only, it helps a lot because like if you look at a job, everything that is reading from some piece of data can all read at the same time, but they cannot do it if something is also writing to it. So you can do a bunch of reads all at the same times, but you can only do n number, like you can only do one write at a time. Right. And anytime that you add a write, it causes a hiccup where everything that was reading now has to stop reading and this writing can start. Or vice versa, everything that is currently writing needs to stop writing so that everything can start reading. So it certainly is always better to add read only to all the things as much as you can. But you also it's all about like optimizing for doing as few lookups as possible, but at the same time also not doing too many moving around data to get it in the right place so you can finally do the change. Ideally, you can just do the change in the place that you need to do the change in, but that's not always possible, etc. So you shouldn't actively try to avoid read-write necessarily, but anytime that you do a read-write, then it is more expensive.
Awesome. Sounds great to me. Well, yeah, I think that'll basically just kind of finish things out here. We can move into our final little segment of the show, which is the dynamic allocations here. So, Danny, you had, do you still have it open, or do you want me to share my screen here?
I do have it open. Just give me one moment to find it.
Beat you.
Oh, yeah, okay, you found it.
Yeah.
So if you scroll down a little, then you can see his content. Go to videos probably. Well, yeah, those actually are great examples. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, Matt KC, I can definitely recommend his channel. If anyone hasn't watched his stuff yet, his content is amazing. He's very nerdy, but he's like he loves to take things apart and like really get into it. So, for instance, I decompiled. If you scroll up a little, he has this video on I decompiled. Scroll down a little. There's a Sonic. Yeah, there you go.
Sonic.
I decompiled a Sonic game where he goes into like he took a Sonic game that was on the App Store and then he decompiles it and gets all the C# code out. And he for the first part he noticed that it is the APK file was actually a C# based project. In particular, it was an old version of Unity.
Oh wow.
So by the end of the video, he actually managed to get a full working. I don't know if he got everything working, but he got a lot of the game running in Unity. So he had like the whole game. Like he took an APK and he turned it into a full Unity game
Nice.
from the original source code. Which really fucking interesting video. All of his content is like this. If you look at the latest one he did, it's already at 759,000 viewers, and it's 50-minute video of him taking .NET and making it work on Windows 95.
It's an hour-long video. Nice.
It's an almost 9 hour long, 1 hour long video on just him making .NET work on Windows 95. But the way he does it is brilliant because he like, oh, now there's an error code, and he doesn't know what's going on and things don't work, and he spends like 10-20 minutes explaining just why this doesn't work and what this error is about and how he uncovered what's going on, and then he turns it into either a comedy club thing or like a murder mystery noir film. He has all these like fun little movie segments he does
Cool.
going outside. And then he comes back and explains what actually is going on. And then, at some point in the video, he realizes, okay, there's no longer, like, it switches between all these error messages. And at some point, there's no error message anymore, but things still don't work. And he has to, like, run two, Windows debuggers at the same time in order to figure out the issue, which is, very laborious, very hard to debug, because he was, it's a C#, the .NET is C#, but he doesn't have a debugger for it because it's a JIT runtime, so you can't really just assume that the runtime is going to work. So like looking at a debugger, you can't put a breakpoint. It doesn't like work. The only point that you can put a breakpoint is like at the start of execution. So he just had to, like, at the start of execution of a working version of the program he was trying to make work, and a not working version, just had to step at the same time.
Step through at the same time.
Yeah, and just wait until at some point they were doing different things. And he was doing that for days. He has some very fun content. I really love his stuff. He was decompiling Lego Island. I
see that. That's awesome.
And it's obviously as a Dutch person, data-oriented programming, a lot of it is about low hardware stuff, and his videos are all about low level architecture.
It's good, like entertainment, but also like very informative. Like you kind of learn how things work behind the scenes, how they did things back in the day when they were like
Well,
very, very performance limited.
both back in the day, but also just like a lot of it is applicable to today.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
the
yeah,
Lego
certainly.
Island.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. Is like you can kind of learn from the past limitations
Yeah,
that they had to make more efficient things today.
exactly. I mean, one of his videos decompiling Lego Island, he you know still has to figure out how does all of the assets work in the game. How did they have like their own proprietary format? But a lot of the stuff in that proprietary format was just like, oh, this part of the format shows a PNG. If I just use a PNG on this part of the file, if I just use like, and PNG is definitely used today, and there was a specific Autodesk format in there which is also in use. So I mean, it's such a good way of explaining low level concepts, but in a fun, wacky way. Um, Still relevant today.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's my dynamic allocation. I'm a big fan of his.
So mine for the week is Braid Anniversary Edition. So
Ah, Jonathan Blow.
yeah, of course, yeah. Classic game created by Jonathan Blow, originally released back in 2008, now remastered, coming out on May 14th. Did want to point it out today because it is available for pre-order. So it is available for 20% off right now for pre-order. However, if you do own the original version of Braid, it's half off, so it's only $10. So I did have the original version of Braid on Steam, so half off for me. This was a super quick pre-order for me because not only did they remaster the game, but they also added in a bunch of new levels. And also there's like a ton of developer commentary in here. I believe he said there's over like 15 hours of developer commentary. Just like going into all kinds of things related to programming and design and everything about art and the creation of the game. And actually, even more than that, I was watching one of his streams the other night as he was like finishing out some things for developing the game. And just kind of sidebar, it was like kind of funny to watch that, like, he's doing a lot of the same things that like we're doing when we're like, creating a little game. Like he's just, setting all these, the Z values, so everything gets like ordered appropriately in the screen, and like, just doing all these like little tweaks to get everything to line up properly. And it's like, yeah, I mean, he's doing the exact same things that we are in, whatever game engines that we're using. But yeah, he was saying on his stream that I guess in recording of these developer commentaries, they have like a total of like 60 hours worth of like interviews for these developer commentaries. So he's going to start releasing these in like podcast form on like a weekly basis. I think he said maybe even today the first one goes live. So
Okay.
Either today or within the next couple days, look out for the Braid Anniversary Edition podcast, where they're going to basically include kind of like all those developer commentaries that I guess didn't make it into the game as well. So yeah, I'm super excited for this. Jonathan Blow is a fantastic mind in the games industry, so I always want to kind of learn from him when I can. And sounds like there's going to be just a ton of good information in these developer commentaries and everything.
I'm sure. I mean, it is quite kind of interesting because I remember him announcing this, like, I think years ago.
Yeah,
working on the anniversary fair. It's been years in the making this one
yeah,
tiny game,
yeah.
and didn't he re-implement all of it in Jai as well? His little
No,
special
no.
thing.
I
Oh,
think
did
this
he
one's
use
still. I
Soul?
think this one's still C++.
Okay, okay. Wow,
Yeah,
wow. Yeah,
yeah,
but I mean, he it's definitely been in the works for a while. This game, holy shit.
yeah, yeah.
But
But yeah,
yeah,
so
no, it's
it's
great.
finally coming out. Oh, one thing cool that I did want to mention, and this is for all you people who are making it all the way into this deep in the episode here. To kind of celebrate this, one thing that I'm going to try to do and really hope to have it implemented is I want to make basically the braid rewind mechanic in ECS, and hopefully for the Hot Path show for the week that it goes, like during the week that this launches, I want to have it
Ah,
ready for that to showcase kind of how I did that, because I think an ECS based setup could kind of lend itself well to doing that kind of rewind mechanic. Yeah, Jonathan Blow, he actually does have a talk, a GDC talk that he did long time ago after the game came out, talking about how he did the rewind mechanic, and it's definitely a good one. So definitely want to try and make this with ECS, and hopefully we'll be showcasing this on an episode in just a couple weeks here.
nice.
All right. And so, with that kind of brings us to the end of our Hot Path show here this week. Was a great episode. So real quickly, just wanted to thank our Patreon supporters. Once again, I did just drop a new video today about this kind of a little bit of a trend that I saw towards these instant games. So I do think that it was kind of a good little talk. Again, that's available to all Patreon supporters. And I do just want to thank all our Patreon supporters at the CPU register tier, which is our highest support tier. So thank you to eCool for your support over there. And then, so with that, we can go ahead and close out this show. Danny, any final parting words for us here today?
Not really. I mean, there's someone asked when the next Dutch challenge is. I sadly don't know, but
we'll have a little bit more information on that soon.
Exactly.
Want to give you guys a little bit more of a heads up, because I think last time it was like, I announced it like 2 weeks before or something like that.
Yeah,
So.
but there needs to be more heads up. Also, then I might be able to, join.
Yeah. So we'll,
It's fine.
But thanks everyone for joining us here today. And we'll catch you back next week for another episode of the Hot Path Show. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye, everyone.